Great. Thank you, Ali. And it's a pleasure to be here again, moderating this webinar of Park Launch. For those who don't know me, my name is Ali Farid Khwaja. I'm the co-founder and chairman of KTrade, which is the most popular stock trading platform in Pakistan. Every day we handle trades of more than $5 million. But the reason I'm mentioning more about KTrade is because of our association with Park Launch. Park Launch has helped us in this journey of the last 8 years. It helped us find some great investors. Those investors helped us enter Saudi Arabia. Park Launch has been a source of introduction to many lovely people who now I call friends. And it's a community which makes you stronger, as well as entrepreneurship can be a very lonely and painful journey. So it's a source of strength. So I'm always grateful to Park Launch in general and Ali Fahad in particular for creating this platform. And today, again, it's helping us connect with another great person who we are all eager to hear from. And the fact that there are 96 people on this call on a weekday is reflective of that. So, Sharif and I already spoke earlier, and of course, I had read his profile before, and I will ask him for his introduction. But he is a founder of a unicorn in Pakistan as well, one of the largest telcos. And I'm deliberately calling it a startup because when he was associated with it, it was coming up from ground up, and he helped build that up. And he has done that in many other countries in Africa. And now, of course, he wears a VC hat for the last few years and has been backing some very interesting business. And really, I jinxed it. I was saying before the webinar started that I'm always worried about the quality of internet in Pakistan, and right now I'm in Karachi. So good thing it happened really at the start rather than the middle. So over to you, Sharif. We are very eager to learn more about Africa, the markets you have been operating, the kind of companies you have been supporting, the kind of opportunities you see there in general, and lastly, and of course most importantly, how do you think the startup community in Pakistan participate and benefit from the opportunity set in Africa? So let's kick off with your journey and your introduction.
No, thank you very much, Ali, and really excited to be talking about Africa and again emerging markets in general. So my name is Sherif Nessim. I'm the founder and managing partner of Jedar Capital, which started as a syndicate focusing on emerging markets, and now we are raising a fund focusing on Africa, and we started to deploy focus on Africa. A little bit maybe of my background. So I've been working in telecom and technology since the early days when mobiles was actually like a big piece of technology. Back in 1998, I joined Orascom Group back then. Spent like 5 or 6 years in the enterprise sector before moving to the telecom sector and the mobile operations sector. I joined as one of the early employees of one of the subsidiaries called ARPO+, which is mainly doing mobile value-added services. So our job was to work with the telcos and the mobile operators to help them develop mobile value-added services, anything other than a person calling a person and sending them a text. So think of entertainment services. Back then, the ringback tones, this was like a core service, all the way till information and services that can be delivered on whether SMS or IVR or different channels, mobile internet. We did also a lot of mobile payments, wallets, microservices, a lot of solutions actually. And I think I was privileged that given the footprint of Orascom, used to focus on emerging markets and spreading actually a very wide area, starting from Pakistan, Bangladesh, all the way till Morocco. So covering the whole North Africa, Middle East region, as well as some operations in sub-Saharan Africa. And this was I would say, the playground that I developed my probably thinking, my views about the global south, the emerging markets, the underdeveloped, the base of the pyramid, which helped me as well to see a lot of similarities. I was 100% aware and conscious of the different cultures in these regions. Like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Southeast Asia is different than Middle East, different than North Africa, different than Sub-Saharan Africa. But when you look at it from the needs, the challenges, the problems perspective, you start to see a lot. You start to see services that are benefiting users in that we launch with, let's say, Mobilink in Pakistan, and the same case applied, for example, in Algeria or in Egypt or in Zimbabwe or in Kenya and so on. So yeah, that has been my journey, I would say, as a tech operator up till 2020. Then 2020, I moved to the States and I started Jedar Capital at that time. Decided first to focus on building a network of people who believe in the opportunity in emerging markets, and then we created a syndicate, which is you can look at it as an investment club, where we share opportunities with the network, and every individual is really free to participate in a specific deal or simply pass and so on. So in 2 years, we were able to build a network of 1,000 members that joined. These were the people who believed in the opportunity in emerging markets, whether Pakistan, Bangladesh, Africa, and parts of Middle East. And we did around 18 investments. We were more focused on Africa. So majority of these investments were in Africa, and we did also 3 investments in Pakistan. After that, I think by end of 2023, I decided that I wanted to proceed and maybe build a VC firm and raise the first formal fund, which will be definitely the first in a series of funds that will definitely focus on the global south. And I decided that raising the first fund, especially in 2023, is a tough mission, that I needed definitely to show investors in the fund that we're not very, I would say, agnostic in terms of regions and sectors and everything. So I wanted to narrow down, especially for the first fund. So I decided to focus on Africa. And we selected as well some specific sectors that probably during the course of the discussion with Ali, we will touch on that. And yeah, here we are now. We did the first close already. We started to deploy, and we're starting to be active, investing across Africa.
Thank you. And that's fascinating that, and that's why I said earlier that you helped build a unicorn plus startup in Pakistan, which of course is now called Jazz and then was Mobilink, and a product which a lot of us use. So a very successful journey of building mobile services for value-added services for telcos in multiple markets with shared problems. Can you tell us a little bit more about the fund which you have set up? What's the size? Do you still have the syndicate? Were the syndicate members mainly from the US? And you mentioned focus on Africa. And of course, we are already receiving a lot of questions on Africa, and we are talking of Africa as like the stereotypical problem of calling it as a one homogeneous piece of land. So which countries do you operate in? And you mentioned a few sectors. So which sectors do you focus on?
Yeah, again, so it's yeah, for the fund, it's again, we focus on early stage startups. So we do really the pre-seed and seed companies. So really post the ideation, post the launch as well. So one of our criteria is to invest in companies that launched and started to generate revenue. We don't care much about the size of the revenue. It could be like $1,000 a month. We don't care much. We just care that we can look at least a 6-month duration so that we can analyze a specific cohort of users or consumers and try to analyze, like, customer that this startup gained in month 1. What do they look like in month 6? Are they still there? Did they churn out? How frequent do they use the service? Is it a sticky service where they use it every day, every week, every month? The revenues, the kind of revenues you're generating from these users, is it stable, increasing, decreasing? So these are the kind of things probably that we care more than whether this company is doing $1,000 or 100K or whatever. So that's in terms of the stage. And the sector that we, again, decided to look at, I think the past few years in Africa, something big happened, which is all countries, 54 countries in Africa, actually, they all signed a free trade agreement whereby they are removing the trade barriers between all these countries. Essentially, what will happen in 2023, and it started actually like 2 or 3 years ago, gradually every year to decrease the tariffs between this country. And the target is to reach a zero or close to zero in some products or commodities tariffs between these countries. And I think this will create a huge opportunity of inter-African trade that will have to be inclusive, given that more than 75% of the trade happens through the informal sector. These are small and medium businesses, small family businesses, and so on. And these companies usually they need technology to be able to be part of this, what I call economic inclusion, that will happen, similar to maybe the financial inclusion that has been on the rise in Africa maybe the past 20 years. So the sector that we selected that is the focus of the fund is, we call it the digital trade, like how to make sure the trade is happening in an efficient way, and how to make sure that digital transformation is touching this sector. So we look at things like digital freight solution, like platforms to manage the 3PLs and movement of goods between different cities across a single country, or cross-border as well, how to move goods from country A to country B across Africa. We also look at the supply chain, the logistics side of things, the whole domain, like from first mile up to the last mile delivery to a consumer, let's say ordering something from Amazon or Jumia or a website for e-commerce. B2B fintech services is core as well, because again, that's a foundational layer to make sure that trade can happen. We need to make sure that there is the financial business-to-business services that can enable them to transact. We need trade finance to help these small companies to finance maybe short-term the trade that they would do, like 3-month financing. You need escrow services. A lot of these companies probably they don't know each other. They just connect to a platform, but again, trust is not there, and oftentimes the value is there, but they're afraid of transacting. The buyer and the seller, they tell them, "Oh, send me the money, you will have the good the second day." The other side, no, send me the goods, the money will be transferred in your account the second day, and then they end up not doing that's a missed opportunity as well. So to find platforms that is digitizing this, building the trust, and acting as a marketplace that offers the escrow part that brings this trust would definitely add the service. So I think, yeah, that's the thesis that I thought of, and it took me some time. And I think what I try to do is connect to the reality of Africa, what's going on now, to make sure that our mandate and our fund thesis is exactly have the answer on why now. So that's for me was the right timing, since the AFCFT is just kicking off and starting. We believe that the next 10 to 20 years, there will be a huge opportunity, and probably the same story that repeated maybe 15 or 20 years. Some of the people probably that are aware of what's going on in Africa, they will know that the past 10 years, most of the unicorns that came up are in the fintech side. And we believe that the same will repeat again in this digital trade, the logistics, the supply chain, the movement of goods. We're just starting now to support the small companies that are building solutions around that. And we believe that the same story will happen, and we'll start to see like these big companies and tycoons, operating across Africa.
Great. No, thank you for that. And there are a lot of questions, and we have very little time. So we only have 40 minutes left, and a lot of people have already asked questions. If you want to have ask questions, please post it to Ali Fahad or Hafsa on chat, and he'll share it with us, and I'll just ask. Conscious of time, Sharif, and it's a popular topic, so I'll just ask you two questions, and then I'll go to the questions from the group which we have here. First, very quickly, if you can also share some light on the investments which your fund has already made. And you mentioned you have invested in Pakistan as well. So maybe we can start from there. And then also in Africa, the investments you have done, the sectors, the countries. And also, secondly, how has your experience been? So how have those companies performed over the last few years?
Yeah. No, again, I think, yeah, the shift from the syndicate to the fund, I think it has been like a spillover. I would say it's a continuum of the journey, because I think I learned a lot during these 2 or 3 years running the syndicate. At that time, we were sector agnostic, so we were looking at a lot of sectors across different regions and different countries across emerging markets. As I said, we're investing in Pakistan. We did one investment in Bangladesh. We did in Africa.
So Pakistan was Crave Mart?
We invested in CraveMart, we invested in Paysmo. It's an HR tech company, and we did one company as well that didn't make it. It's called Lattice Kitchen. It was like sort of a food ordering service for the businesses. So far, yeah, CraveMart has been a successful like transaction. Paysmo as well, they're growing very well, and they're starting to think as well of given that they are a SaaS platform, I think they're considering now opening up and having customers from outside of Pakistan as well. It's always easier when you build a very asset-light SaaS platform where it's based 100% on subscription. So once you do the right buttons, and then you're able to launch in one of the countries. And as I said, I think the transition has been for me kind of seamless, because number one, as I said, emerging markets for me, I always looked at it as one block. You just need to understand the nuances and the difference in cultures and the importance of localizing any service. This is what I've been doing for the past 25 years when I was working in the telecom. A lot of services actually that we launched in Egypt are the same in Pakistan, same in Algeria. But what we used to do is leverage the local office and the local team that we have there to make sure that we are localizing it to fit the local nuances of this specific market. So I think the transition for me was easy. It wasn't like doing something and then moving to a completely different thing. It was just trying to narrow down my focus to make sure that we are able to spend enough time across, let's say, 7 or 8 or 9 countries across Africa that we focus on, rather than spreading ourselves too thin in multiple countries. That was one. Number two, the sector, as I said, during the syndicate period, as I said, I learned a lot, learned about myself, which sectors I feel more comfortable understanding and assessing and doing the due diligence, and also as well post-investment, which sectors I was able to support the founders after the investment. If they reached out to me as an investor and tell me, hey, Sherif, we're hiring, let's say, somebody, and we need to have like somebody with an experience in telco or the banking sector. Am I able to help them versus other, maybe a health tech? They said we need like a scientist that is very specific doing, biotech experience and everything. So what I realized is, yes, these are the transactional platforms, like the financial services, supply chain, and all these platforms that is based on transaction. I was able to tap into my network and connect the founders to the right people that can help them. Also leveraging, of course, the relationships that I have with the mobile operators, especially in Africa, and I'm sure this is the same in Pakistan. Probably for any company or any startup, if they strike a deal with, let's say, Mobilink or Telenor or other operators to launch their service in, let's say, co-branded or white label or anything, this means that they can, it's a very fast go-to-market plan. where they can hit hundreds of thousands of users very, very fast versus them doing this through digital advertising. It will cost them money. It will take time. And I think one of the things as well that I noticed is people trust the mobile operators big time in our regions. That's the company that they have the daily relationship with, and they trust them. In many countries in Africa, that's their credit card, actually, like in Kenya, the mobile money, and in many other countries as well. So they look at the mobile operator as that's our day-to-day partner. This is our communication channel. This is our mobile bank and mobile wallet and many other services. So I think also such partnerships is one of the values that we can help the companies that we invest in. So again, it was important to look what sectors I can leverage this.
So which countries beside other countries besides Pakistan? Any startup which you want to mention? So I just wanted people to have some kind of background in terms of your prior experience of backing companies in Africa.
Yeah, so again, as I mentioned, a couple of companies in Pakistan, Mart and
Yes.
Ismo. In Africa, we've done, for example, a biotech company in Egypt called Protinia. And they now have grown into like 4 offices. They have an office in Boston in the States. They have Boston in Munich in Germany, and an office and a lab actually. So they have a lab in Boston, a lab in Munich, and a lab in Egypt. And the company has been growing, and this is one of the examples as well that companies that are building in our part of the world, whether this is Africa or Pakistan, they can aspire actually to serve international customers. And this has been the case for Protinia. Most of their customers are outside Egypt. Many customers are pharmaceutical companies in Europe or in the US. And I think, yeah, that's a very successful example of companies that can aspire to have these international companies. We also invest in other countries. So in Africa, we did invest in again, a fintech company, which is sort of a neobank for the SMEs called Julaya in Cote d'Ivoire. And they're operating in 4 countries now, in Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Benin, and Togo. They're very similar to Sada Pay, for example, or Easy Pays in Pakistan. South Africa as well, we did a couple of investments, an agribusiness lending platform where they help the small, it's not the smallholder farmers, but small companies that is in the food processing and agribusiness, how to go there and help them with their working capital needs without the need to go to the banks as well. So these are, yeah, some of the examples of companies that we supported, that really in different sectors.
Perfect. Sharif, let's jump into the questions and with Africa, and I'll kick off with my first question, and then I'll read the questions from the audience. Sharif, where should we begin with Africa? So should we start from the north to from the south? So should we go from Egypt, Ethiopia? Should we go with the large countries, Nigeria? Shall we go with the easy countries like Kenya? What's the starting point?
I think it's very important to look at the continent as 54 countries and understand that different regions they have different characteristics. And I think the closest region in terms of characteristics to Pakistan is North Africa, because again, North Africa is still Middle East to many companies. And I think we, like Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia, are best suited to be the companies that can bridge into expanding their services in the GCC, Pakistan and UAE and Qatar and Kuwait. And then from there as well, they can expand to Pakistan and Bangladesh. So I think that this corridor is the most obvious in terms of similarity and in terms of ease of expanding as well. It's more open than Sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is a little bit, I would say, close a little bit on being open to companies from outside the region to enter it. So it's harder, and it comes as a second probably stage. And I think this started to change since like Morocco and Egypt took the lead, and they said we should start to look south rather than just looking east towards the GCC area, which has been the case for maybe the past 20 or 30 years. Most of the business, when they start in Egypt, the natural expansion was always GCC area. And very, very rarely that you find companies from North Africa going to Sub-Saharan Africa. This now started to change. So I think we will see more and more integration. And therefore, back to your question, where should we start? I think now the playground is different. You can start to look at maybe 4 or 5 countries that are really covering the 4 regions. And these we call them the big 4. That's the naming that is very common in Africa. The big 4 are Egypt and North Africa, Kenya in East Africa, Nigeria in West Africa, and South Africa in the southern area. So these are the top 4 markets. They're very, very, I would say, well established in terms of the whole startup and venture ecosystem. All these 4 countries, actually, they have like VCs that are investing in companies locally. Whether they have, number one, they have a strong local VC presence, which is very important. And they have international VC like appealing, like, VCs from Europe, US, GCC as well. So I think that's the safest entry point. And then there is another way to look at it, which is the sectorial probably interest. For investors, for example, or people who want to get this exposure about Africa, if they have a specific sector, then they might go outside of these 4 and go towards a specific, like infrastructure, for example. They can go to specific areas where, like DRC, Central Africa, these are places where there are a lot of infrastructure, I would say, projects running now. A lot of cases they're getting capital from the GCC, so that could be as well a different way or another way to look at which countries to start with. But the common thing was, or my advice is really to look at the continent as 54 countries. I need to really dig deeper into a country by country and decide, yeah, that's the countries that we want to start with. And we want to navigate how to probably do the right market entry or the market expansion in these countries.
Very, very interesting. Moving to the questions from the audience, and thank you for sharing the thing about Big Four. I've learned a lot here. One question is asking what sectors in Africa are currently showing the highest growth potential for venture investments? You have already answered some of the questions, but how do you see the African startup ecosystem evolving over the 5 to 10 years? Again, I know you have answered a lot of that in your questions already, but what sectors and what's the outlook?
Yeah, in Africa, I think even though that yes, maybe sectors we're not looking at, but it's very important to mention them. Health tech, I think it's something that is very, very focused now, and I started to see even health tech focused funds just focusing on these sectors. Agriculture is important, given that the agriculture is a major part of the GDP of most of the countries in Africa. So agri-tech, health tech, climate tech is a big thing now as well. A lot of climate solutions, climate-focused funds as well. And I think logistics and supply chain as well is very, very important. How to leverage the movements and the trade of goods. So that's the first question in terms of the sectors. For the second question was what was it? Second question.
Growth. So the growth outlook for the next 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, no, I think there is a huge potential, and there are some like reports that people looked at the amount of VC investing as a percentage of the GDP. And I think Africa was growing in up till 2021, 2022, before the global, I would say, economic turbulence that we had right after COVID with the supply chain interruption and everything. I think Africa was in VC in Africa. We hit, I think, the peak at 2022, when the value of the VC investment that came into the continent hit the $6 billion mark. And this was like 10 times 2015, I think, or 2016. So we grew from like 500, less than 1 billion to 6 billion in 6 or 7 years. And people are expecting that the next 10 years, if things started to grow again and people started to look again into Africa and invest, and looking at the GDP growth as well of Africa, I think there is a huge potential of growth as well in the coming. One important factor as well that I think is very, very important is the rise in the local VC ecosystem in Africa. The past 3 or 4 years, more than 20 or 30 new VC funds that are Africa focused, and in many cases, Africa like led by an African team. Like again, we consider ourselves as well as an African focused, even though we're headquartered in the States. But again, I'm from Egypt. I've worked there. The team are all actually people from the continent and sitting in the continent as well. So I think this will help as well, because the more local VCs that you have in the local markets, I think this sends a signal to the international investors to come and invest. Versus another country where there is no ecosystem really developed there. There is no local VCs. It's very hard for the international investors to trust and take this leap of faith and jump. They need to see the local ecosystem believing in their own ecosystem so that they can believe in it as well.
Absolutely. And Sherif, I'm also curious, so let me put my question in as well. I'm curious about other markets like Congo, Ethiopia, Somalia. I hear about these markets a lot from some large Pakistani groups as well. And then I told you last time we spoke that Lucky Cement, a large conglomerate in Pakistan, owns a cement company in Congo. Similarly, Pakistani pharmaceutical products get sold in Somalia and Ethiopia. Do you have any insights into these markets?
Again, I think these markets are very good in terms of the infrastructure, physical projects. They're still now learning and developing. So I have engaged with, let's say, DRC, the Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo. And what they're doing now is they're starting to learn from Nigeria, Tunisia, Egypt, how to develop an ecosystem that can help startups. So far, it's not yet, I would say, VC friendly or VC ready countries. They are infrastructure countries that they have a lot of projects in, let's say, energy or, as you said, commodities or mining or maybe building materials and stuff like that, which is a heavy kind of project that usually governments and maybe entities, I think from UAE is active there, Qatar is active there, Saudi is there. I'm sure as well some Pakistani businesses are going there to build factories. But what they need to do is to build an ecosystem that is tailored for these, because again, these are digital companies. They need to start defining what does a startup mean? What kind of benefits or incentives we as the government in Ethiopia or Somalia or DRC should give. So the good sign, I think these are markets that are up and coming, probably in 5 years' time from now. And these are huge markets. The same for Algeria, but maybe Algeria has took like a faster steps, I think. But 5 years ago, Algeria was the same in the same position as other countries, Ethiopia, and they were still starting to develop their ecosystem to make sure that they can attract investors. So I think these are markets that are working now, that are work in progress to develop an inviting VC ecosystem so that they can locally support their startups and then start to attract the local VCs, and then we'll start to hear about their names as well.
Well, thank you. And let me share for the wider audience that, the Pakistani link with some of these markets, like one of the large banks in Nigeria is Habib Platinum Bank. It was founded and owned by Habib Bank. Similarly, Djibouti, there are two banks owned by a Pakistani and our friend Khuldoon, who's on the board of, who the CEO of Alfla Investment is on the board of those two banks. Similarly, one of the largest gold trading business family in Africa. I'm forgetting the country. I think they're Pakistanis, and so there is a lot of and as I mentioned, Lucky Cement owns a cement company in Congo. So you will find Pakistanis if you go into these markets doing very well. Moving on to the questions, the next we have spoken about growth. Question is, how do valuation trends in Africa compare to other emerging markets?
Yeah. No, I think this is one of the leverage points that we focus on, especially in my conversations with whether LPs and investors that would come into the fund or even companies that I try to build some sort of bridges between founders in Africa and in the US. The cost of building a company in Africa, let's say a tech company that is based completely on software, but they need to build the software, is maybe 1/10 of the cost of building this in the United States. And hence, I think the kind or the amount of capital that you need before the company is really like start to be off the ground and start to generate decent revenues are much, much less. We can think of like, yeah, if a company raised 1.5 or 2 million, they can hit a mark that is equivalent to a company in Europe or US that has raised $20 million to be able to reach the same milestones in terms of customers and in terms of access to the market and so on. But there are two problems as well with this as well. So that's the cost of building. There is the revenue, which has the same, and that's the negative part of it, the same effect, that it's harder to reach the same levels of revenues. So a company to hit, let's say, the $10 million revenue mark, this is in US, this could be like in the first 2-3 years. Pakistan and Bangladesh, that's a huge dream. I mean, if a company did that, that's big, that's huge, and probably will take them like 7-8 years till they're able to do that. And I think this is very important, both for the investors to understand and as well for the founders to realize that when we're building company, we shouldn't say, yeah, I mean, we're building an AI company in Pakistan or AI company in Nigeria or Zambia and the average valuation is like $50 million or $20 million for AI companies. It's very important to understand that is one of the main drivers that probably will keep this ecosystem very strong, is the ability to build companies for much less, and hence the valuation of company should be in line with this, the revenues that you are able to generate in this specific region, as well as the cost of building this company. So yeah, the trends, it's definitely there was a peak in 2021 where things were irrational. We're hearing a lot, and again, I'm talking about Africa and Pakistan because I've seen this in Pakistan as well. The company would come into IC, and then all of a sudden they're still generating very, very, very minimal revenue. But just because they went through IC, they wanted to tag themselves with a valuation that wasn't realistic, $15 million and $20 million and $25 million. But I think they learned the lesson, especially during the tough years or the cold or the VC winter in 2023 and 2024, when a lot of companies, they had to go back and have this sanity check, and they all went through down rounds when they did like maybe
Absolutely.
Exactly. So I think, yeah, now we're back again to the realistic valuations to the region as well.
Absolutely. In the meanwhile, I just checked. So it's Raji family from Pakistan who owns Raw Bank in DRC, and they are not Rajis are not in Pakistan, but they're linked with Pakistan and originally Pakistanis. Lots of questions and very little time, 15 minutes. So Sharif, let's do it in a rapid fire way now. What are how are global headwinds such as rising interest rates and inflation impacting fund flow to the African VC space? And I link it to another question that what are the major structural challenges which is hindering the growth in the VC sector in Africa?
Yeah, headwinds have been tough, definitely. Again, inflation, interest rates, especially in the US, given that many of the LPs and investors in the funds are global from the US and Europe. So I think, yeah, this the past 2 years with the high interest rate in these markets has hindered a little bit the flow. And hopefully with the decline again in the interest rate, we'll see capital starting to flow again in emerging markets.
Got it. And how can somebody from Pakistan participate in both the Africa venture opportunities? So I'm assuming he's saying as an investor. And secondly, also as Pakistani startups, how can they participate? What's the route of going? Is the route talking to somebody like you and you or other funds who are operating there? Is the route to go and find local families over there? Is it going and attending some conference over there? What's the starting point?
No, I think platforms like, again, like us, like a fund or syndicates, any other syndicate, the syndicates are nice because usually it's a community of people discussing together the deals and usually co-investing together. So there are a lot of learning that probably will add up. Like once you do the first 2 or 3 investment, you will learn a lot about Africa. So I think syndicates, join a syndicate, come and invest in a fund. That's a soft landing again in before going and doing direct investments. And of course, spending some time on the ground is crucial as well through events and conferences across Africa.
Anyone you recommend, any conference, any event you recommend people should
There are a lot. So there is every year there is GITEX Africa in Marrakesh in Morocco. Also Kenya in Nairobi there is Africa Tech Festival in February I think in Nairobi. South Africa as well. There are a few events around October, November. Again, Africa Tech Summit, as well as different events as well. So these are like nice platforms where you connect probably to founders, investors, a lot of learning there as well.
Thank you. Moving to the next question, synergies. What synergies do you see in terms of collaboration of companies from Pakistan and Africa? Is it technology? Is it capital? Where are the synergies?
Yeah, I think number one is the similarity in the problems that founders are building. So I think there are a lot of collaboration that will benefit both teams, like companies operating in Africa, how to leverage and go and maybe launch their services in Pakistan and vice versa. And also, I've seen a lot as well of many teams actually in Africa. They have the part of their back office in Pakistan actually. So they leverage as well the technical talent as well to use this talent to help them develop their service as well. So I think yeah, there are different many venues of collaboration between these two regions as well.
Thank you. People are asking that, how do you hedge against the currency fluctuation risk of the African markets?
Yeah. So there are number one, investing through a fund. That's the first level or layer of mitigation because now you're investing in 9 or 10 countries. Probably you will have this currency exposure maybe in 3 or 4 countries. Egypt and Nigeria had like definitely a bad hit, but you have like more stable countries like Morocco, like Zambia, like South Africa, where their currencies were more stable. We have now as well Ghana. Ghana, the currency is actually strengthening again versus the dollar as well. So that's the first layer. The second layer is to focus on countries that stands a chance of exporting their services. So, for example, a company in Egypt building a solution there, getting revenues in the local currency. So that's a risk because it's local currency. But they also have maybe expanded their customers' reach, maybe to some customers in Europe or the GCC or Saudi. So that's mitigating the risk there because now you start to see a blended kind of revenue. So some revenue that is based on US dollar or euro, which is stable, and then some countries, some revenue in the local currency. Tunisia as well. Tunisia and Morocco are countries that sometimes they build the company from day one with the purpose of serving international customers. And we had like 2 successful examples, for example, Expansia, which is a company that 90% of their customers were Europe, and InstaDeep, which is a company that was acquired by BioNTech. Again, they were serving Europe, revenue in Euro, 100%.
Got it. So similar to Pakistan, and that's what you were saying, that it's very the shared problems. Another shared problem which people are asking about is regulatory barriers, slow pace of regulation. Do companies who want to, Pakistani companies who want to expand there, do they need to set up locally? How difficult is it to set up? How long does it take? Is it expensive? How difficult or challenging it is in getting license? Do you need license in every 54 country, or could you passport it?
Yeah, it depends again, of course, on the sector. So the financial sector is different than the e-commerce sector, than the health tech and everything. And also it differs from one country to to the other. So I think if a Pakistani company need to go to a specific country, they need to think strategically. Sometimes the best option is to go through a partner. And in this case, they don't need to really have and get into setting the office formally or getting a new license. They can leverage an existing partner with an existing license in a specific sector. Some solutions, of course, that they need to be present and doing things. So they need to understand Africa is very, very different. So you might find a very welcoming regulatory, for example, financial regulatory system in a specific country, and maybe a tough one. So they need to study every country and understand the specifics. And this is part of the strategic, probably, planning for their expansion. When they're thinking of expanding into Africa, they need to prioritize. They say, okay, let's win and go to country number one, which is easy. And then we go to the second country, and maybe this country we go directly, and this country we go through partner. They need to be smart on the way they think strategically on how to enter new markets.
Great. And a few people have asked about this question about perception problem and myths, and about Africa. And the few common myths are, related to corruption, bad governance, and also security risk. Are these real issues? And do you see investors getting comfortable with that risk? And if I add another question with that, which people have asked, is that as an investor, do you need boots on the ground to get comfortable with these kinds of issues, or do you think you can manage it, let's say from New York?
No. Again, number one, given that I worked most of my career before starting that in Africa, I think this helped me a lot as well, and helped me in understanding the real problem there, or the real magnitude of the problem. Definitely investing in emerging markets in general, whether this is in India, in Southeast Asia, it is riskier than US and Europe. But the problem is exactly as you said, the perception. I think the reality is 10 times, or the people's perception that they have now is 10 times the reality in terms of corruption, in terms of security and everything. And many of these stories as well are like 20 years old stories. But people stick that, yeah, it is corrupt, that you cannot do anything. I think corruption is everywhere. It is in the US, it is in Europe, maybe different ways. But again, one important thing, and this is something I noticed that has started to change. People started to understand a little bit that there is an opportunity in Africa and in Southeast Asia that we need to capture. And they started to be open to learn. We want to learn. We want to understand what is the security risks. When I came here, I remember my friends from the US, when I traveled back to South Africa and everything, they were like looking at me as if I'm doing something crazy. Are you sure you need to go there to Nigeria and everything? And to be honest, these were for me one of the pleasant places I visit. Risk is there definitely, but it's like slightly maybe different than other countries, but it's not like crazy 10 times magnified that like the media or the stories that are being told.
Yes.
Uh,
Any nice, which is your favorite country, especially to travel and to meet and to, so
I love
if Pakistani people want, where should
yeah,
we start?
South Africa for me. I mean, I love like the atmosphere. I usually go there in November, which is their summer. So for me as well, that's another reason that make me like happy, escaping the wind and the snowy weather in New York, and then go spend some time in warm weather in South Africa. So
No, so we should start with South Africa. There's a question that, what are the barriers to entry in Africa, and how much time does the localization process usually take? Do African regulators have the capacity to keep up with the rapid innovation? So again, question on the regulators, what do you think over there? Can we generalize? And secondly, localization, how difficult it is?
Yeah. No, localization definitely is key. And that's why I think partnerships is very important. Or if you're going directly, you need definitely to hire a local leadership team, like people from the country. That's the leadership. You cannot send like a country manager and a whole team of expats. You need to have the local people that understand how the market operates to be able to be successful. Because it's very, very hard. There are like multiple languages. There are like different local languages. Every country is very similar, very common in Africa to have like local tribal languages. In some countries, I know that there are like maybe 30 languages that you need to cater for. So it's very important to have this local teams to help you in the localization. For the regulation, I think they are learning. This is what I noticed. And again, since I'm from Egypt, I can give a very clear example, for example, on the Central Bank of Egypt. So the Central Bank of Egypt, they used to have like people, 60-year, 70-year-old sitting there, and they were the people who were managing the files of what you can do as a startup. But they realized that they cannot cope. Again, it's very hard for this age group to learn fast. And they started to hire young people in their 20s, 30s, mainly from the telcos, by the way. So they got a lot of people from Orange in Egypt, Vodafone, Etisalat, and tell them, you've been doing mobile payments. We want you to come join us at the central bank. They hire them and they tell them, these are the files. Tell us what to do in mobile payments, open banking, eKYC. And these are people who are open, they travel, they see things done in Europe. And I think this made the difference. In the past 5 years, Egypt has issued at least 5 licenses for different services and levels of services. And now they're keeping up because the teams that are managing this that is not disconnected from the young consumers or what's going on in the world in terms of the technology. It's very important.
Absolutely. And then Sharif, so people in Pakistan, we have a mental map of South Africa because of cricket. So we
Yeah,
see South Africa more as like white person's area. And we have a mental map of Egypt because of the pyramids in Cairo,
yeah,
and because of the startups and people like you who from Egypt who have a connection with Pakistan. But everything in the middle just is one block.
yeah.
So I'm curious that besides South Africa, which is the other country where if we have to take a bag and travel this winter, where should we travel to?
Rwanda is a great place. Again, it's very, very unique. A lot of people they look at Rwanda as the UE or the Dubai of Africa because
Mhm.
really the ease of setting up businesses there is amazing. You can really set up an office and get the license to operate in specific sectors in less than 2 days. So
Oh,
there they
wow.
became the
Thank you.
model of Kenya as well as a great place, Francophone area. Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal is
Mhm.
really good places as well to look at. Um, Egypt, of course, I don't want to be biased, but essentially, yeah, definitely one of the top places to visit and consider, of course.
So let's ask about Egypt. There's a question that Egypt also has political issues and also currency issues like Pakistan,
Yeah.
but it has been able to attract a lot more VC funding than Pakistan. Why do you think that is, and what are the lessons?
Yeah, I think in Africa, countries like Nigeria, Egypt, and maybe Ethiopia as well in different sectors as well. These are like huge population. Like Egypt is 110, Nigeria is 220.
Mhm.
Ethiopia as well is over 100 million or close to 100 million. So people still thinks that these are huge markets. Even if there are turbulence, we need to keep looking at it and see how to leverage. One other thing as well, I think that we took the hit already. So people now are uh, like the country has really floated the currencies there. So we had like 1 year, which is last year, which was a very, very high impact, especially, I mean, on the personal level we got like inflation like 40 30 40%, but once you 1 year passes, you absorb this because again the base year changed and now you compare it to the previous year and so on. So I think people, investors will start to look back again, and they cannot neglect the
Yes.
size of these countries. So
You
please.
think the size and requires people to be present. I also think that in the case of Egypt, it's also because your entrepreneurs, in the mainstream industry, also participate far more actively in the VC scene than Pakistani local families do. Like the founders of Orascom, you mentioned they had started a VC fund early on, and you were a part of that, and you learned from that, and of course they have Hoff Capital. So I think the local traditional businessmen are more involved in Egyptian VC scene than perhaps Pakistani domestic capital is. There's a question that how do you compare tech or specifically AI talent in Africa with other markets you have invested in?
Yeah, no, and people are eager to learn. So I think, and I think now the barrier of learning as well is not there. So people really, if they want to learn about AI, they have all the resources online to go there and educate themselves and train, and so I don't think we lack the opportunity to learn, whether in Pakistan or in Africa in general. We have access. I mean, this generation is definitely privileged. They don't need to travel to get the right AI education, but they have the access to do it. The idea, or maybe the gap, would be the time needed so that really we are using AI to solve our problems. And I think it's different than maybe 10 years ago when there was a gap of maybe 6 years of difference in so that the technology can move from US to Africa or in Pakistan. Now it's very fast. I'm sure that we're already starting to see AI companies, or at least companies that are using AI to solve some parts of their problems, whether in Pakistan or across different countries now.
Great. We have time for just squeezing in two more questions. So there's a question that infrastructure gaps there are infrastructure gaps in Africa, ranging from logistics to internet connectivity. So how can startups adapt their models to work despite these issues? Should they focus on one particular geography, one particular city? What's the solution? How bad is it?
It's definitely still far from the international standards, but I think it's getting better. And I think it's very important to look at the young age of the population. These are people who are, and again, number two, the price of the smartphone handsets now. It's becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper that people are can be connected. The problem is the pricing. Still, internet access is expensive in Africa. So to have this widely spread, it's tough. That's why in Africa there are a lot of solution actually that is still till now is built on USSD, where it's like sending an SMS.
Wow. Okay.
And they're very, very successful. And these are one of the things that I always like talk about. That's the localization. You change the service instead of using a mobile app and go to overcome the challenges in the infrastructure. But I think governments are focused on that. There are a lot of projects now, public-private partnerships to try to enhance the internet access, building data centers. There's a huge project with NVIDIA in South Africa to build a data center for AI. Same in Egypt as well. There are some projects run there. So I think in the next 10 years, hopefully things will get better. And yeah, again, founders need to focus on areas where they think their solution can work, or they need to be creative and think of ways to adapt and overcome the challenges that they have in the infrastructure.
Thank you. I was in attending a conference in Saudi Arabia, and a former foreign minister of Singapore, one of the founders of Singapore, was giving a keynote speech, and he said that by in 15 years' time, 50% of the population of the world would be A, Muslim, and B, in Africa. So he was highlighting that how central Africa would be for the future of the world, and so it's important for every country to be a part of that. Sharif, the last question from you, and sorry for people who, if I missed your question, but we tried to put combine questions together. One piece of advice you wish you had when you were starting out in your entrepreneurial journey and investment journey in Africa. So, what has been some mistakes, and what have been the lessons from that?
No, I think one thing I learned is the importance of really to closely, very, very, very closely connect to the local environment there. Like really build a network of friend VCs, other local VCs that you consider as your friends, as your team. It's very important to focus more on collaboration and co-investments and investing and connecting to the local people on the ground. It's very, very I used to do that, but of course, one of the lessons I learned, if time goes back, I will do it more. I will spend more time on the ground, and I make sure that I have people on the ground that are very, very close. They're really VCs that are friends where I can call and ask them about anything.
Sharif, this has been extremely insightful, and so thank you for your time. I can envisage many companies from Pakistan and many technologies and many people who I know who have worked on those technologies, which I think would be very relevant for some of the African markets you have spoken about. So I think that certainly this was very useful, and Africa is a market we should all should be on our radar. And because, as you rightly said, the problems are shared, and perhaps Pakistan is ahead of Africa. So we have solved some of those problems, and we are used to some of those problems. So those problems will not be as a surprise to us, and maybe we can use our solutions which have worked in Pakistan and make them successfully work in those markets. So, Sharif, thank you for your time. It was a pleasure talking, and I would personally love to stay in touch with you. And I do have a lot of follow-up questions, and I will share them with you on LinkedIn and WhatsApp. And I hope other people in this group can also do that. Ali Fahad has already offered you that to please visit Pakistan, and we would love to host you there.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you for
yeah.
your time.
No,
Take care.
thank you, really, Ali. I enjoyed the conversation, and thank you very much, and thank you for all those who tuned in and joined the webinar.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank
God
you.
bless. Masalam.
Assalam.